Hey friend, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the best minimalist watercolor supplies. So if you are on a budget or maybe you want to travel with some watercolor supplies and you don't really know where to get started on having some good supplies on a low budget or just trying to pack light, then this video is going to go through my list of if I were to choose a minimalist approach to my watercolor supplies. So first things first, let's talk about brushes. So I'm gonna go through my top favorite brushes, and then if I were to narrow it down to one, which one I would choose. So first of all, it really depends on the subject matter that you're painting. There's going to be different brushes for different techniques, for different stroke outcomes, etc. However, if I were just getting started with building my watercolor supply library, then I would have a good wash brush, a good filbert brush, and two round brushes, one like kind of a medium size, this one is a size 6, and a size 2 for really thin, fine lines and details. So all of the brushes that I use are from this company called Princeton, and they do sponsor my content. However, I've been using them for years. Prior to when they started sponsoring me, I've used them for over 10 years now. And so I am absolutely obsessed with these brushes. They're synthetic brushes, so they're not natural hair brushes, which is really expensive at times. And they, in my opinion, hold the same quality, the same value as natural hair. Klinsky sable hair, for example, is one of the most coveted hairs for watercolor artists. And so the Heritage 4050 series and some of the Velvet Touch, and then also the Aqua Elite series, is modeled after Klinsky sable hair, but it's synthetic. So it's really snappy, really flexible. I go into detail on brushes and the hair and the quality and all of that in a separate video that will link in this one if you want to check it out. But if I were to start with like strolling the aisles of an art supply store like Blick, or maybe ordering online, and I just didn't know where to start, wash brush, you would want, this one is a 3/4 inch size wash brush from the Aqua Elite series from Princeton. If you're doing like really big, broad landscapes, then I would highly recommend going up to their 1 inch size, and it's called the Mottler brush. It's still a flat square edge like this wash brush, but it's called a Mottler. The Aqua Elite Mottler brush holds a lot of water. So if you're doing big, broad strokes with glazes or backgrounds and washes, and you want to use a lot of water and pigment, highly recommend that size 1 Mottler brush. But if you're doing smaller kind of like stripes or smaller washes or painting on a smaller sheet of paper, then this 3/4 wash brush is awesome. And then I have this size 12 filbert brush in the Velvet Touch series from Princeton. At the time of recording this video, this brush isn't quite out yet. I helped create this brush. I'm very proud of it. I love filbert brushes for painting flowers. It's my favorite go-to brush for painting flowers. So if you paint flowers and you could only choose one brush, it would be this one. They also have a size 8 in the Velvet Touch series. If you can't find the size 12 yet, check out the size 8, it's just smaller. So you would paint smaller details, smaller flowers with that brush. And you can also paint florals with a wash brush as well. I have a video on that. And then my 2 rounds, these are kind of non-negotiables for me because they give you thin lines and broad strokes. So if you use the belly of the brush, so the brush on its side or a slanted hold, you'll get a wide stroke. If you use it vertical like this, you'll get a thin stroke. So if I were to choose just one brush to start off with, it would probably be a size 12 round Heritage 4050 brush. It's a great in-between size, the size 6, which I'm holding right here, and the size 16. And you can get really thin lines out of that brush, out of both the size 12, the size 16, the size 6, and then especially the size 2. So if you're doing realistic style painting with florals, landscapes, whatever, or you just like to paint really thin lines or outlines of things, a size 2 or even a fine liner brush is pretty important. So it's a size 2 round, so it will give you a fat stroke if you use a slanted hold, but then vertical hold is going to give you a really thin, small stroke. So highly recommend. Those are my 4 go-tos or 4 staples that I think every watercolor artist should have at least these 4 eventually. But if I were to start off with just one, it would be the size 12 round Heritage 4050 brush. But if you're painting flowers only, then you might get away with just having the filbert brush. If you're painting landscapes, you might want to gravitate towards a bigger round brush, like a size 24, so you can do the big sweeping backgrounds and also smaller details. So those are a few nuances and tips to get you started depending on the subject matter that you want to paint. So those are the brushes. Next, let's talk about paint. So if you've been around this channel for a while, you know that I use this Sylvan Clayworks ceramic palette. It's beautiful. I also have a plastic travel palette that's awesome, that folds up, that you can travel with. So we'll link all the supplies that I mentioned in this entire video will be linked in the description. So if you can't start with purchasing all 20 of these pigments, all 20 of these colors, then I have a list of 6 colors from my Mary Blue, the line of watercolor that I prefer to use. It's professional level. That will get you started. If you can't even start with 6, like maybe you're on a small budget or you just want to start really small for whatever reason, then start with the 3 primary colors, blue, yellow, and red, because you can mix up a large variety of colors. From those 3 primary colors, you can even mix up brown and black, and obviously the secondary and tertiary colors with your primary colors. So I have a good video on this as well that will link in this video, so you can check it out. But the 6 colors that I would recommend starting off with, I will just list out, starting with our primary colors. So Permanent Red Light is the red that I prefer to use. If you've been following me since the Winsor & Newton days, then you're maybe familiar with the red called Scarlet Lake. This red, Permanent Red Light by My Mary Blue, is very similar to Scarlet Lake. It has a little bit of an orange undertone to it. So great red. And then blue, my favorite blue has always and will always forever be Prussian blue. It's a deep, like midnight rich blue when you get it in a really thick, buttery consistency, and then it can go very pale and translucent. My yellow is called Primary Yellow. It's a nice, similar to Lemon Yellow Deep. It's a nice warm yellow. Love this yellow. So again, those are my 3 primary colors that I would choose. So if you only can start with 3 colors, those would be the 3. And then you can mix up grays, you can mix up browns and blacks with those 3. And orange, purple, all of that. However, I'm a huge fan of neon pink. I use it quite often in my floral paintings. And so quinacridone red is my favorite, one of my favorite neon pink. Also Opera Rose in Winsor & Newton is also a great one. If you can't find this brand, however, this brand is available on Amazon, it's on Blick, so it's pretty readily available. And then the let's go green gold. So you might be wondering why I wouldn't choose a more like secondary green, a more like leaf color green, because I paint a lot of flowers. This green is a little bit more, it's literally green gold. So it's very yellow, very vibrant. If you use a lot of water and just a touch of this pigment, it's gonna look like chartreuse. And then thicker amounts of it, it's gonna look more like a burnt yellow, a green gold. I am obsessed with this color. I have to have it in my palette. Once I discovered this color from My Mary, I was like, I need all of the other colors from this brand. It's awesome. And if I want it to be a more true green, like for green leaves or whatever, I'll just add Prussian blue to it and richen it up, make it more of a true green. And then the black, because you can get black from blue, red, and yellow mixed together in a variety of different ratios. However, you can't really get it super thick and super charcoal black. So I would recommend Carbon Black from My Mary Blue. This is my favorite black that they have. They have a few other ones, but this is my favorite. And then if you can go beyond, a little bit beyond 6 colors, I guess my next couple recommendations for you would be to add a sap green from the My Mary Blue line. Dragon's Blood is this really deep red brown. If you want it to be more brown, you can add blue to it. You can add green to it to make it a little bit more brown. The contrasting colors will make brown. So there's a lot of red in this Dragon's Blood. If you want it to be more true brown, you'd cancel that red with green. So mix up some green and add it to that, and it'll be more of a true brown and a really rich, good brown. Yeah, those would be my 2 additional ones. If you want to check out my full palette though, of the whole list of colors that I use, we'll link to the video where I go through how I set up my palette and why I chose these 20 pigments from My Mary Blue. Next, but not least, next but not least, is paper. Paper is so important. I get DMs and comments all the time from people asking, why is this happening to my colors? Why is the like granulated color, the pigment separating from the water? Or why isn't it mixing well? Or why is there this weird dried texture when my pigment dries, or whatever? A lot of the time, not all of the time, but a lot of the time, your problems can be solved with high quality 100% cotton paper. So I know that paper can kind of add up and be expensive, especially if you're going for something like Arsh, and it can be expensive, especially if you're just learning and you're practicing. However, it's so important to invest in good quality paper, because you're gonna just get frustrated with the results that you're seeing. And it's honestly, for a lot of people, it can be a waste of time. There was a time in the beginning of my watercolor practice over 10 years ago when I was working on Canson watercolor paper, and I kept looking at all these other people online, on YouTube, on Instagram, or whatever, that were painting with watercolor and having the same paint colors that I have, the same brushes that I have, but having way better results of very simple shapes like circles or whatever, and getting really frustrated. And then when I invested in a higher quality paper, something that is 100% cotton, I think I originally started off with Fabriano cold press paper, and then I've tried Legion Stonehenge Aqua, I've tried Arsh, and then now I've landed on this St. Cuthbert's Mill Saunders Waterford, because it's very readily available and it's like half the price, like I said, of Arsh, depending on where you shop. I love this paper. It's so important to use good paper, because you're gonna enjoy the process, you're gonna want to come back and paint more, and you're not gonna get so frustrated, or it's just gonna be more eye-opening to the whole world of watercolor and how beautiful it can be when you're seeing results that you love. So I know that paper is, again, especially if you're learning, something that ends up in the trash a lot of the time. So if you are, if it is starting to break the bank, you can technically paint on the back side of the paper. However, it's not gonna have the same results, because it's not the same finish. It's not the same toothy, cottony finish as the front side. So just keep that in mind. But if you are just trying out like brush technique and mixing or whatever, and you're not too worried about the end result, then totally fine with you to go ahead and work on the back side of the paper. So that is where I would start if I were to approach a minimalist approach to watercolor supplies, or where to get started if I'm on a small budget. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you want to check out my full list of supplies, I have a watercolor download of all of my supplies that you can check out. You can also go to my Amazon shop. All of this is linked in my Amazon shop at jennarainey.com/Amazon if you want direct links to every single color that I use. The palette, however, is not available on Amazon because it's beautiful and handmade by Sylvan Clayworks. I am obsessed with Sylvan Clayworks ceramic dishes and palettes. I have like 6 of them. I also have these water cups that she made. They're very dirty because I use them every day. And this little wiggle brush holder that is awesome too. So that's not, on a budget per se, but I love her products. And if you can work your way up to investing in one of her beautiful palettes, they just make your space so inspirational. But also I post obviously a lot of my work on Instagram, and so it makes a little cute element to style in the photos as well. But check out all the other supplies that I recommend at my Amazon shop. As always, thank you so much for watching these videos. If you think I forgot a supply, or you would recommend something if you were just starting out, or you're on a small budget, then drop it in the comments below. If you want to take your art journey a lot further and have a community around you, exclusive tutorials, live Q&As, and live art classes, then check out my Patreon. Every month I'm dropping new tutorials that I don't share anywhere else except for on my Patreon every single month. And we have tons of people in our art community through my Patreon, collaborating with each other, asking questions, giving feedback and inspiration. So check that out. It's at jennarainey.com/Patreon. And then I also have a beautiful online course that combines tapping into flow state and how to develop the skill of flow state to create your best work, best original work, and also the fundamentals of all things art, like perspective drawing exercises, shape and depth, and understanding sketching. That is absolutely fundamental and foundational to any type of medium. So check out The Art Within. It's at jennarainey.com/the-art-within. And as always, thank you so much for watching these videos, and I will see you in the next one.